Nerderotic.com.
Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I come to you from Nerdrotic.com, and I'm live in San Francisco, California, and I am with my co-host, Jon Reed, down in Hollywood, California. How are you, John?
I'm better than I guess Michael's doing okay. I'm better than most Starfleet people right now. I'm doing okay. Yeah, no, this is an interesting series, right? Like it's like a tale of two shows. We were talking about this a little bit beforehand, and I know you want to get specifically into how this was like a good episode and a bad episode mashed into one, but it almost feels like we're watching like they're just taking an amalgam of like pieces of other sci-fi things from recent like cult fandom, like Battlestar and Firefly, like the Reavers versus Klingons and the Cylon, like they're taking all of these kind of ideas and mashing it together into one show. And I think that the more they do that, the less distinguishable it gets as a Star Trek show, but the more enjoyable I find it. We talked before on the last podcast about how we're like 50% Trekkies, and I'm probably more like a 25% Trekkie. So for me, like, I'm not bugging out over like Klingons and stuff like that. I'm just enjoying it as like a sci-fi TV show that I'm like enjoying on a visceral level. But I can totally see how like every episode we're creeping further and further away from what Star Trek is supposed to be. Right. Anyway, so what do you think about what they're doing over here at CBS All Access?
Oh, God. Okay, the paying thing, I just can't get past. I gave it a break last podcast and dropping that. By the way, what you said in the first part there, this is the pen equivalent of dropping the mic. That's pretty much it. By trying to be other things, you're turning into nothing. Okay, you are Star Trek. You are freaking groundbreaking. You should be going where no one has gone before. You're going where everybody at the Tenderloin has gone before. That wonderful area a few miles from me. For one, in the beginning scene, she is sitting across from no less than 3 people who are in the Expanse. Okay, all 3 cast members were in the Expanse. I will name you their characters. There was Kenzo, who was the operative from season 1, and then both of them were people who died recently in season 2. Spoiler warnings: Colonel Janus and Doris, who was with Praxidity Mung. And by the way, Trekkies out there, and I never say Trekkers. By the way, let me preface this way: I was a 100% Trekkie. Trekkie never bothered me. I never let it get to me, so I never made it to the Trekker part, who are the very serious Star Trek fans. So I'm still a Trekkie. Okay, you can call me Trekkie all day long. And there's also the security officer was from Battlestar Galactica. She played Tori. They brought in all the Canadian actors. Basically, that's all they were. There's only like 10 actors in Canada, and they weren't working on The Expanse. By the way, Trekkies, if you're not watching The Expanse, stop and watch The Expanse. It's the best sci-fi show on TV, and could well be the best sci-fi show ever to be on TV. Okay,
wow,
boom. And I love BSG and I love Star Trek. What they're trying to do, this was such a weird episode because I'm still trying to root for Michael. And like, I'll be honest with you, John, if this didn't have Star Trek on it, I'd be out. Out of this because it's a frustrating show, because I want to like Michael Burnham and I can't. I can't like her. Yeah. She's unlikable. Like, her only thing, like, you remember last podcast I was saying, well, at least she's flawed and stuff like that. But then I got to this episode and I'm like, oh, she still thinks she's right. She just thinks she thought ahead and everybody was fucked up by not going along with her thinking. She is sorry her captain died and some of her crew members got hurt, but she still thinks she's right.
So that's a good question, because I want to get into that a little bit. I don't know if this is like the perfect time for it, but it almost seems like other people are telling her she was right, and she's like has been like fighting against that concept. And
that's true.
It's almost like she's like, fine. Like, if that's how you want to look at me, fine. But like, the captain, what's his name? Captain Lorca, Captain Lorca. He's the one who was really saying like, hey, what you did was prophetic. Like, you were just thinking 3 steps ahead. And that's the kind of person I want in my crew. And, you know, it's kind of ballsy to say that after all the trouble that happened because of her actions, but I guess he just doesn't care about that sort of stuff. He lives on the edge. He's a wild man.
Well, I mean, the way they set it up at the end, which we'll get there, is can we flip the script and make Jason Isaacs like a good guy? Because he's getting a little typecast. Okay, Lucius Malfoy. But I wanted to like his character too, and had a hard time doing it. And I don't know where the likability is in some of these characters. I actually liked the three people she was on the prison thing with. I was like, I wish they would stay, because I know I've seen all three of those actors in previous stuff. Like I said, The Expanse, and they're all good. And that would have been an interesting dynamic. Like they got trapped on the ship, but of course they didn't. So they went away.
Right.
And I watched another review, and I don't want to pine from it, so I'm going to give him credit. It's a guy named Jeff Holiday. I've never watched his videos before, but he did a really good video on Star Trek. And he pointed out that, and I agree, that Star Trek is about a crew and a ship. A ship is even a character. It's never about a single person. There is a main person. There is a Picard and a Kirk, but it's just as much about Spock and Scotty and McCoy and
Riker. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this has been about Michael Burnham. Everything was was to move her singular character together. And yeah, we had Doug Jones and the other girl who was the cyborg who didn't say anything this episode, but it was just everything to push her character forward. And we finally got some other characters, but one. So we got kind of one from last two episodes that got the first officer. I'm forgetting the alien.
Yes, Saru. He's great. Yeah. I like him.
He was much better this episode, by the way, like more distinguished and good. And I like how they're dealing with him. Like he's kind of androided. I mean, he's kind of a Data Spock
kind of a Data
thing, but maybe willing to I don't know. He's very direct. I like that. And I love Doug Jones. I told you in the last podcast, I met the guy who's super cool guy.
Yes.
But where are the other characters? Like we met that lieutenant, the kind of arrogant lieutenant. It's pushed on other characters a little more, but like by the third episode of a 17 episode season, which isn't huge, I should know like where my Star Trek crew is now.
Yeah.
Are they trying to break the mold? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about that, John? Because it kind of bugs me.
It bugs me too. And here's the reason it bugs me is because I can see why they're doing it, and it's not a good enough reason to change the format of what makes Star Trek so iconic, right? Like they're doing this because they want to tell Star Trek from the point of view of a character other than the captain or first commander or whatever they call them. First mate. Who's lieutenant? Lieutenant, first lieutenant. So it feels like they're really trying to go out of their way to tell the story of this unique but not in command member of Starfleet, right? And so they're really, if you tell any story about Starfleet, it ends up being about the captain of the vessel. And they're trying to go out of their way to not have that be the case, to have the captain be a secondary character and to have Michael be the main character. And all that that's really doing is turning the show into kind of more unrecognizable as Star Trek than it already is. And they've done a lot of those changes and tweaks. So I think they're going out of their way for a very contrived reason, right? That said, Michael is a compelling character if it weren't a Star Trek show. Right, like I like Michael in Firefly as like a guest star on a one-off episode. She becomes a lot less compelling as like on like a science fleet turned warship. And so I don't know. I just have issues with the fact that they're bending over backwards to make this the Michael story when it should be the story of Star Trek Discovery, which is the name of the show. It's not
totally.
Michael.
They're trying to make Ensign Rowe the main character. That's pretty much what they're doing.
Yes.
And I recognize her ideals, and I actually recognize that this is a lot of this. I hear one of the complaints in Jeff Holiday's videos and other videos is the Mary Sueism and stuff like that that's going on. I kind of disagree with that because if you look at Kirk, particularly in the Kelvin universe, not in the original universe, because he was never that bucked that many rules in the original series. It was made to sound like he did a lot, but he didn't. Okay, he did once in a while, but it wasn't a constant thing he did. But if you look in the Kelvin universe, like Kirk broke a ton of fucking rules, and he's a lot like Michael Burnham.
Yes,
he did. I mean, as much as I liked the first Abrams Star Trek, I liked it. I thought it was really good. That's still like just a mirror Kirk. Okay, he did some ridiculous shit. Okay, that was just like I didn't buy it in the real Star Trek universe.
Yes. No, I was gonna. This is the Bizarro Star Trek show.
Yeah,
like that's what they've created here. Is they've thrown us into this like dark Star Trek where like everyone is trying to make Game of Thrones now. Inhumans is trying to be Game of Thrones. There's political intrigue. All the characters are gray. There is no black and white. And that's what they're doing here with Star Trek. And it's so because of that, it's turned into this like bizarro fleet where like everyone's a little fucked up and everyone's a little like edgy and there's hidden motives everywhere and everyone has an agenda. And, it's just like, it's going to get real old real fast. That said, again, if it's not Star Trek, if it's not branded as Star Trek, I'm probably enjoying it a little bit more, just as like a new kind of sci-fi adventure show. Like it's a cool conceit. It's mashed up a lot of things that I really like about other shows that I like, including like directly taking actors from other shows. And so like, if it's just like this new cool sci-fi show like Expanses, like I'd probably be digging it. I'd probably be saying like, hey, I recommend this show. But it's hard to do that when there's so many people who have such a love for Star Trek in my own circle of friends. I can't really recommend it to them because there's an expectation that comes along with the Star Trek show that I just think they're failing to meet.
Yeah, you don't need to do world building. It's built.
It's already built.
You can throw in, salt and pepper a little bit here and there, but I mean, it's done. And they make it so easy for you. I don't know why it's so goddamn hard for Hollywood. It's a lot like after Dark Knight came out, all the superhero movies had to be like Dark Knight and just chose not to be like Iron Man. They chose to be like Dark Knight. And that really worked out very well for DC, didn't it? No, it didn't. So don't be something you can't. Star Trek is not fucking Game of Thrones, okay? Be Star Trek, okay? Star Trek can be Star Trek. It's still there. More than ever, it would be great to see, the mission of hope and togetherness and some thrilling, fun. You can make it fun. This is like dark and dreary shit,
Yep.
and like I said, there's some cool stuff when they went down to the ship and there was that monster floating around. That was kind of a surprise for TV, and that was kind of cool. And it killed the Klingon. And I thought
it remind you of Star Wars Force Awakens when the first scene when they get to the Millennium Falcon and they're on the ship and the monster's chasing them around?
It certainly did.
And she's crawling through the vents, quoting Lewis Carroll, which frankly, the most Brian Fuller thing ever on a Star Trek show is quoting Alice in Wonderland while you're crawling through vents being chased by a giant, like weird creature. Anyway, but yeah, I thought it was kind of cool, but it was also like right out of other show, or the third episode of Firefly where they go on the ship and there's some mysterious thing and the Reavers have been there and they find all the mangled bodies. Like it reminded me of that too. Like there's nothing. Yeah, like I said, they're just piecemealing this thing together. But yes, it was interesting. It was well done, right? Like it was cool. It's just like nothing I haven't seen a million times before.
Well, no, and that's they're slapping this totally. They're going ahead with an idea that somebody else. They're going ahead with an idea with a guy who has left the show.
So story by.
Yeah, so you found all his writings and stuff, and you're just pining off them right now, and it's the guy's not there. You don't have like, oh, what did you mean by that? So you're interpreting somebody else's work. It never works out well. Nope. Yeah, she's on a prison ship. Then these ridiculous things happen. Now it turns out it was all constructed by the captain, but she gets lured into the ship, and they all of a sudden have her being Michael. They have her eating with the crew, and she's a prisoner of freaking war practically. Yes. She's a mutineer, and then they have her in the mess hall eating with the officers. And then like talking to other people, and maybe in 300 years they're really loose with their prisoners, but they weren't beyond calling them human garbage, which I noted down. I'm like, You think in 400 years they would just like not say anything or be beyond going, here comes the garbage. You know, it's like, what? I don't know.
That was the word. Like, I actually made a note of that in mine too.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, this is a little overcompensating. But I also, at least, I hated everything about that, like letting this like prisoner whose crime was causing the death and destruction of an entire ship and crew, like on their ship with their crew. And so I was just like, this is ridiculous. But we find out later, like you said, that the captain already thinks that like she was actually the one in the right, and so he wants her as part of his crew. So it was his way of like bringing her in, you know, slowly over the course of the day or 2 days or whatever it was. So, you know, it makes sense in that the captain wants her as part of his crew, so he had to do it somehow, and you know, whatever. But it was like, as it was happening, it was like, okay, this is a little much. Like, and not only that, but like the people who were on the other ship that happened to survive were on this ship too. They know everything that happened, and they're still kind of like, I don't love you, but I guess it's okay that you're here. You know, like there's no way that those people who witnessed what they witnessed because of her dumbass actions would be like totally like, okay, well, I don't love this, but I guess it's okay. Like, no, they'd be at the captain's quarters like, what the fuck are you doing, Lorca? She's a crazy person. She's never going to listen to anybody. We don't want her here. She's going to destroy us all. Like, I don't know.
Even in war, that's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And, you know, maybe we're going to find out later. There's a faction out there that really wanted the war with the Klingons. And she, you know, that's why Michael's like, man, this guy thinks I'm right, but I don't know if this is the guy I want to think I'm right.
Right.
You know, but in the end, you got to tell us that. That's good storytelling. Give us a hint, show some cabal or whatever. You know, I really hate at the end of the second episode when she was getting sentenced and everybody was in shadows and stuff. That was terrible, man. That looked like, would you run out of money at the end of that episode or something like that? I don't know. I don't know what it was supposed to be, but it continued on. You're going on so many assumptions here. You know, again, you explained why she was on the ship, but like, dude, like you just said, how did so many of her crew members survive and end up on the same fucking ship? Now, probably Lorca organized that too, but
Lorca orchestrated it.
Yeah, Lorca orchestrated. That's going to be hard to say. Lorchestrated. There you go. Like you just said, Lorchestrated.
Hashtag Lorchestrated.
Hashtag Lorchestrated some fucking shenanigans. That's what he did.
Can I ask you a question? What is the science guy? The head science guy. What's his?
Why is there so many unnamed? Oh,
yes, dude. It's him. Lieutenant Stamets. I guess Stamets.
Why is his name not on IMDb?
Anthony Rapp is his.
Anthony Rapp
is his
What's
the actor.
His deal?
Yeah. So he was so Anthony Rapp playing Lieutenant Stamets, I don't know, was talking to his science buddy over on the ship that got demolished, right? And they were talking about some sort of project they were working on. Was it the spores project? Is that what they were talking about on that conference call that they were having that she was lurking on?
It didn't seem like it to me. I think it seemed like, you know, I got to go back and rewatch it because it could have been that little monster too that was running around. I think that's what it was. But well, no. I think the monster was there, but I think they were jumping because if you look at their injuries on the ship, it looked like a bad jump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They weren't like totally, they were like turned inside out.
Mangled, yeah.
Yeah. It looked like Captain Amazing, or what was his name on the Mystery Men when he got turned inside out. Yeah, that's what it looked like. The jaw, like the guy he was talking to, his friend, his jaw wasn't like ripped off; it was like bent and warped and weird. So
very warped.
Yeah, everybody looked like they were turned inside out. So yes, I think that was a spore thing. I think they jumped and they had a pretty bad jump. So
like the Klingons got a mid jump.
That's something cool. Now you're going to have a hard time explaining how this technology was never mentioned before. you know, but they're gonna have a hard time explaining a lot of stuff.
Look, that's the thing. If the technology were the only problem, I'd be totally fine with it. It's like, okay, well, that was made in the 60s. You know, the original show was made in the 60s. This is a prequel. It's made today. We want the show to look good. So I don't care about the technology, like stupid blinking lights and stuff that they had on the original set. That's not what I want to see in a Star Trek show. However, it's not the only problem. So it's like a compounding problem, right? It's like, now I'm going to say you've got a lot of issues, and this is another thing that you're like throwing the technology in our face with this like weird teleporting but not teleporting like life form, biological life form that lets you see either into the future or just to different places. I couldn't really tell, but you don't actually go there, or you do go there but only for like a split second. I don't know, it's hard to understand what that stuff is, but it's also hard to understand why it's not in like a huge, I mean, maybe it like kills you, so they decided to discontinue it, like I don't know, but it seems like something that Starfleet would want to have.
It's like they harnessed the TARDIS.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it is.
This was very Doctor Who-y, this episode. Too.
Yeah.
The, like floating water particles all over the place, and her like trying to come to like some conclusion about a mystery that's happening with some sort of teleportation travel, like time scene.
Yeah, totally. It is like she dropped on a ship, and they're in the middle of a project that we got to suss out. Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And oh my God, the Alice in Wonderland thing, just back on that. Yes. I'm glad they explained that it was like a book left for our parents, because I'm like, okay, so did she read Alice in Wonderland in a Vulcan school? What? No. Okay.
It's still a little weak to like, just because you want her to be quoting Lewis Carroll while she's running away from this monster, you have to contrive a story that she has the one last book in her possession. You know, like this is... just don't like, it's unnecessary. This is unnecessary. Like, and it's not like, again, we haven't seen a bazillion shows where characters are quoting Lewis Carroll through the looking glass as they're experiencing some weird freaky shit. Like, it's the base level, like it's the easiest thing to go to, and so to like go out of your way to go there, it's too much.
It's as base level as Picard quoting fucking Moby Dick,
right.
which he did.
Exactly. Right.
Often. You know, yeah, dude, point. Swear to God. No, that's a great point. No, that's a great, and Brian Fuller, I really want to know why he quit. I want to know the real reason. I know what he said out there in the public, but you know, that's bullshit. I want to know like who he got in a tiff with.
Well, you know, okay, here's the thing. If you're having issues where your actors are doing other projects and you're having like a lot of production problems and it keeps getting delayed and people can't show, and then somebody's like, hey, you want to shoot American Gods, I think you take that offer. You know what I mean? I think
hell yeah, we'll give you all the freedom in the world and money,
whatever you want.
Neil Gaiman.
Awesome, yes.
And like, this is a winner, you know, and like it's, and then you won't have to deal with, sorry, Star Trek fans. Which, you know, it's like taking on Doctor Who. Yeah. It's well, Whovians are just as bad as Trekkies. I mean, just as bad. I'm more of a Whovian, or I was, than a Trekkie. And yeah, you know, and Star Wars fans, they love everything. So at least you could make Star Wars. That's probably why J.J. Abrams went over there, because they just love everything. But
give us a lightsaber and we're happy.
Yep, give me a lightsaber. We're good. Droid. Cute little furry thing, and a pog or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Whatever the hell it is. So I don't know. This isn't a Star Trek. It's Bizarro Star Trek, but it's barely Star Trek, and that's a great point you bring up, John. Like, if this was titled something different, I'd probably watch it. I'd be okay with it, because some of the concepts in it are cool, and if they really go. I mean, I'm gonna continue watching, because basically I kind of like Jason Isaacs' character. That I was kind of hoping that we were like he's, you know, that would be great to flip the script to make a guy seem really evil and dastardly, but he's actually kind of good. That'd be different, but they're not going to do that. He's going to end up being a bad guy or something, which is too bad. But I still want to see how bad he's going to go. He's got his little monsters, and quite frankly, can you argue with him? Like, we're going to war, but we got to fight it, you know, with with an 8-inch knife and not a sword or a machine gun. That's stupid. You know, it's just, and I don't think 400 years would change that. You know, I just don't. Like, the Klingons will use whatever the hell they want. You know,
agreed.
But although they are about, well, they're not about honor anymore. They're about purity. Which is
so when he was staring out and his eyes were all cosmic-y with the stars to kind of show that he's a little bit crazy from being out in space too long. did you get like I for a moment was like, and I think I'm talking about the right character, but I was like, this guy would actually be a pretty cool like Captain Marvel or Marvel from Marvel Comics, like like, or just some sort of like cosmic creepy guy, like I was like,
he'd be
he
a
could
great like not a celestial, but
a watcher. Who else has cosmic eyes? They just did a good job with the eye effects, and I was like, oh man, he could play a lot of those characters. This guy's a great actor. So yeah, I was watching that and I was like, oh, they did a cool job with that, and it made me think like, oh, this guy would be good in some of the Marvel stuff. Yeah, and like you said, it would be nice to go against type with him and not have him be like some weird, creepy, evil guy.
As long as he was like, he would be a good Beyonder, but you would have to do a little CG on him. But he would be a real good Beyonder. Now, Beyonder, the Beyonder, everybody thought it was based on Jim Shooter because it kind of looked like him, but the old EIC at Marvel. But he would be a good Beyonder, a good Bolivian, whatever. There's Infinity. There's a bunch of guys you can, but that would be
Living Tribunal.
The Living Tribunal. They mentioned that in Doctor Strange. That was cool.
I know.
Back to Star Trek.
Yes,
dude. Yeah, this is and it's also riding the line of the Kelvin. This still looks very Kelvin and J.J. Abrams.
Yes, it looks Kelvin. Yes.
Okay.
Lens flares all over the place.
Yeah, and I don't hate the sets or anything, but they're just blah. And another thing Jeff Holiday pointed out, which was great, and I'm gonna. Everything that's in my mind that I saw from him, I will give him credit for. I shouldn't have watched the video, but he made good points. We knew when the first 10 minutes you saw the bridge, and that bridge was imprinted in your brain, man. Like the bridge was bigger than life. It's like knowing the inside of the TARDIS. If you're a Doctor Who fan, the inside of a Star Trek bridge, and we don't know the inside of these bridges yet. I don't feel introduced to the Discovery. They finally showed you a swooping shot of the the name of the ship and everything, but it's still it just doesn't feel right. I actually watched the first 15 minutes of Encounter at Farpoint right after this because it's right there on my CBS All Access, and I still say that Star Trek Next Generation season 1 was awful, except I love Q. Q, and the first thing they did was they brought out a villain that you wouldn't expect. Like you would expect them to trot out the Klingons,
the Riddler,
or the Riddler, the Romulans, or something like that. But they trotted out Q, something totally different. That's what they should have done on this, or another threatening alien or something. I don't know. And this Klingon war, are we going to be skirting around the sides of it, or because if we're going to start this whole thing and then not show it, boy, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, no, we'll get there, I think. But I've got a question for you, and I'm going to show a little bit of my lack of technical knowledge about the Star Trek technology and ships. The open flight bay, where it has like it doesn't have like a door. It's just it's open, like in Star Wars with the force field. Has that been around for a long time in the Star Trek universe, or is that a new thing?
Well, you've never seen the force field before until like later, but the bay has been open and the ships fly in, and cool. Sometimes there's a door, and sometimes they just kept it open and you assume there's a force field. So them showing it fly through the force field, I think you can buy that. That's totally passable. That's no big deal. Holograms, them talking to holograms is a big deal because they didn't do that. They didn't do that until like later Star Trek series in the 90s, I think.
Because the holodeck in Next Generation, right, was the first kind of version of that, and they didn't have it miniaturized on the bridge yet at that point. I remember the technology behind the holodeck was like a big deal in Next Generation.
It was, and and they need to pay more attention to that. I agree with you. We need the technology is fine, but you need to temper it with other technologies. We could still show shiny stuff without having holograms or shit like that. I also wanted to bring up real quick what Brian Smart, our commenter from last week, brought up, which we did not, which we should, is the Axanar movie, the fan-made Axanar movie. Because that's a big issue with.
How much do you know about it?
Alls I know, it was Trek fan made.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a little bit of it, and it's been, you know what, it's people on my friend. I know a couple people. No is a loose term. I am friends with people I've met at Comic Cons who worked on it. Okay, so I've seen it through time, pop up on my Facebook feed and stuff like that, but I don't watch fan made stuff. I just don't. No offense.
The general idea was that they were working on it. They were kind of showing what they were working on, and then they got the lawsuit to stop production completely because Discovery was in the works, and it took place during the exact same time period. So they were worried about similarities and differences, and they didn't want any confusion. So they slapped a lawsuit on them to stop producing it. But then there's the argument from the other side that because they had gone through all this production, that that CBS or whoever was producing it knew about their concept and stole it so that they could make Discovery. So there's this kind of like chicken or egg debate and thing going on. I think most people probably assume, maybe correctly, that it's more the latter than the former. And yeah, so
I would assume that because this project's been going on longer than Discovery.
Yep.
So
yep.
Did they pine off them? I haven't watched the whole thing through. I can't say, but would they? Yes, that's Hollywood. Hollywood is famous for people taking credit for other people's shit. Okay.
But here's the thing: the people making a fan show about Star Trek is using somebody else's property to tell a story they want to tell. So there's two sides to that. I think
can take the George R.R. Martin side of that, which is don't make fan shit, just make your own stuff, which is great.
You can't get annoyed if they take your ideas and put it into there. You should be flattered because you're using their original material. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they should be hiring you and stuff, but if you're putting it out there, that's on you. If I wrote to start,
if they're not making money off it, they should be allowed to make it whatever the hell they want. I mean, this is a free country. You're not, I don't know, but they must have been making money off it somehow, because that's the only way you can stop them. You can't say, I can make a Spider-Man comic. There's nothing in the world that says I can't make a Spider-Man comic. I just can't sell it.
Right.
So they must have monetized their YouTube channel or put ads on their website. I don't know. People can correct me on that. No. That's the only way they can stop you.
Yes.
Otherwise, make it. Go ahead. I mean, just don't make any money off it. That's as far as I'm concerned. That's what I heard the laws were. I mean, we go to cons every day, or not every day, but every time we go to cons, there's guys selling, pictures of Spider-Man. They're allowed to sell like, a couple here and there. Nobody's going to bug you about that. But if you start mass producing them, they're going to get your ass. Now, yes, I completely agree. Like, putting so much time into somebody else's property, that just shows how much they love it. So you got to treat them with respect.
I agree that there should be some respect there. But if you're looking at that and they're like, oh, that's a good idea, we want to do our version of that, then
don't be surprised.
Yeah, don't be surprised. Like, you're working with their toys, you're playing with their toys, and they want their toys back. They were their toys in the first place. So there's subtleties here that were I'm glossing over, but
no, don't.
If I make an Iceman comic book and Marvel's like, oh, we like that idea, stop making that, and they do their version of it, I can't really be pissed off because I'm making an Iceman comic. I don't know. I just feel like you should be spending your time on your own your own properties, and then you won't even get into these problems.
Yeah, I think the gist of the argument is what you said earlier was CBS was cool with it at first, and then wasn't. Now, I don't know if that was pre-split, post-split of Viacom. I can't even remember how long ago that was. But again, it's, the whole Scorpion and the Frog thing or whatever it was. It's like that's gonna fucking happen. And Jon works there, and I have worked there. And these are some awful people. Okay, it is a den of snakes down there. Okay, that's, oh my God. I wish I could talk about my friend Bill Selby and how he got screwed over. But I can't, so I shouldn't have brought it up. But you know what? But don't take offense from us, Star Trek. We're on your side. We're down with the little guy, man. Like, like fuck CBS, But God, at least if they're gonna rip off the fan film, do something fucking good. I mean, or work. I don't know. I think there could have been. I don't think anybody's gonna get confused. Personally, the audiences aren't the people. Okay, Star Trek fans aren't dumb. Okay, so the people who are going to watch Star Trek shit are going to fucking figure this out. Okay, now
especially because one's
there's some other
distributed.
shows,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I just think that if you have one thing that's distributed like officially through CBS and another thing that's just showing up on YouTube or whatever, it's not hard to, what's real and what, like, I don't, you'd have to be a moron to think that like CBS was distributing this movie, this like feature length movie on YouTube. Like there's no way they would do that. So I think that you're right. I think that these both things can exist in the same way and they should just be cool with it, but I also understand wanting to protect your property if you own something like Star Trek. So there's both sides there that I can understand.
Yeah, totally. I wonder who's in charge of Star Trek at CBS. Is it Les Moonves himself?
Yeah, I don't know
if they have like a voice, like a Kevin Feige or somebody like that running Star, because I know they have big plans. Like beyond Discovery. If Discovery is successful or not, they have big plans for Star Trek.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, don't get discouraged, Star Trek fans. There's going to be more. They just got to figure it out. It's been too long. Now, I love the fact that they wanted to break formula because I've always felt in the 90s, like when Berman was in charge, who looks good now, but like comparatively, like each show became a shadow of itself and it got super boring. I got to give them points for trying, but it doesn't look like they're trying very hard, John. Yeah, especially what we talked about before, just taking Brian Fuller's script and basically using it word for word and not adding anything to it. It's like, wow.
Yeah, for me, like the way I feel about this, like I like to, when I'm talking to you about this stuff, I try to kind of play devil's advocate in some ways and really kind of dig really deep into like what's actually going on out there. But me personally, I've divorced myself from the fact that this is a Star Trek show already. Like, because I see all these other influences, like the Klingons could be the Reavers for all I care, or the Cylons. Like this to me isn't really a Star Trek formula or a Star Trek show. So I've kind of divorced myself from that, and I'm actually sort of enjoying it. Like, I like the idea that there's this looming war going on in the background, that these are like scientists that are having to man up and fight this thing, that there's like weird shit going on that we have to figure out. There's some intrigue, like I like all that. Everyone's a little bit fucked up and flawed, and like there's so much that I am digging in it. I think the execution is at a good like B- C+, but I think that the ideas and the pacing and it's entertaining. Like I'm enjoying it. So like for me personally, like I'm cool with this. I just see that all these flaws are there, and I know that it's gotta be annoying for somebody who actually cares about the source material, right? Who actually cares about the universe. Like I don't have that connection to this like I do with some other properties, and so I'm kind of like cognizant that like if this were the X-Men, if this were something that like I held very, very dear and was expecting something specific, I think that I would be not enjoying this very much. And so that's kind of the perspective I'm trying to speak on. But for me, like minute to minute, I'm like, this is pretty good. I'm cool with this. Like, go for it, Michael. Like I'm like, what's going on here? Like that dude's crazy. Like, like I'm just kind of enjoying it on that level. And, I don't know.
I'm going to take it like life, one episode at a time, one day at a time, John. There was stuff about last episode that I liked. I liked the second episode a lot better than the first. I hated the Klingons, but this episode was, like I said, it was half good. I like the fact that there was only one Klingon in it. That made it better. And there was more characters.
You just shush me.
And I did like the captain, the lieutenant. I think I might like him too. Doug Jones's character, I keep forgetting.
Saru.
Was it
Saru?
Okay, yeah. I'll try to remember that. Yeah, but I liked him a lot more this episode. And the whole Black Project thing during war, I think that's actually a really cool concept. And if they make Lorca layered, not just like a mustache twirling villain, if they make him like a layered guy who's like, you know, maybe something happened to him, or maybe he's just into winning the war, or maybe he truly believes that, yeah, I'm going to do some fucked up things, but it's going to save a ton of lives. You know, there's an argument to be had there. And if they make these arguments and intelligently, this could be really, really good. I'm not going to give up on the show. Okay. I think it still has great potential. It does. Once we being the Trekkies or Trekkers or casual Star Trek fans either get over the fact that like this is the new Trek, that's it, you know, or you can either leave now or stay in and actually just get into what the actual show is. Well, kind of the stage you're at that, but you know, it might get better. It might get better. Right now, it doesn't look good though. I'll be real with you. I can't see this thing at this point right now. This thing is not getting picked up for a second season.
So, I think that they're going to give this thing a lot of leeway. So I'm not really sure we can make, like, I don't think that it has a bearing on
by the
quality.
Way, that's just what I think.
Yeah.
I have no.
That's valid. My point is that whether or not it does, I don't think it's an indication on how successful it is. I think that there's a chance that it gets a lot of rope to hang itself with over a long period of time. But I think for the way I've been kind of judging it, I feel like the show, part of what Star Trek I think was each episode was very self-contained. If at most it would have like a to be continued arc, right? It was never really meant to be this serialized thing. It was supposed to be like these one-off like exploration, you know, everything was just like a mission. There was a mission, and that mission happened over either an hour or 2 hours, depending on if it was a 1 episode or 2 episode arc, and they were all kind of disconnected from one another. It would be one thing one week and another thing another week, and they've turned it into this kind of serialized show now because that's what everything is on TV that's successful these days. And I just don't know how the essence of Star Trek translates to a serialized TV show, right? Like, I don't know how you can do that effectively without making it feel very jarring from episode to episode. And like, I think Doctor Who does it pretty well, but even it stumbles at times with that, of having like this overarching arc, like especially this last season, right? Like, we wanted this big finale for the production team and the Doctor and everything, but what we got was a sandwich. We got like the start of an arc, and then a bunch of one-offs, and then the end of an arc. And yep. I feel like but it maintained the essence of what Doctor Who is. And I think that that's what Star Trek is struggling with right now, is they're giving us this serialized show when Star Trek maybe isn't meant to be that serialized. And so it feels very, very different. I think there are better ways to do it, but I think that maybe that's what they're struggling with.
No, definitely. I mean, it's going to be episode 5 before we get introduced to the full crew. You know, I mean, like,
I hope it does though settle into like star logs, and like you're on the bridge and you start a mission off and you continue that mission through to finale, to the end of the episode. I hope we get a little bit more of that, like that kind of settled in pace where it's like, hey, we're kind of cruising through space, and we stumbled upon this thing, and then we fix that thing, and then we keep on traveling, like that kind of mood that Star Trek can get. I hope we get in there at some point. I don't have a lot of hope that we will, but if we settle into that for an episode or two, I think that'll make me very lenient on the rest of what's going on.
Yeah. It being a ship, but they said in the scenes for next week that it's a science vessel being commandeered as a military vessel. Well, didn't that kind of happen already with the black things, with the black Star Trek signs? Or I don't know, but that I wonder if that's kind of like how the show got commandeered from Brian Fuller. Like, he wanted it to be a Discovery thing, and then they're like, no, we need some pew 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 and everything, and war happened. We need some war. And Jason Isaacs, because remember, I could be wrong about this, but it feels to me that Jason Isaacs' character got cast way late than everybody else. I don't know if that was just because it took so damn long to film everything. It was clear that those first 2 episodes, or at least the first episode, was filmed a long time before the one we just saw. So it really looked kind of different, and I don't know. And by the way, Michael Burnham is really short. Okay, because I've stood next to Doug Jones, and he is a tall man, but he's like 6'5", Okay.
Yes.
And she comes up to his elbow.
Yeah.
Okay. Just saying. So many actors are short. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Yes. Oh man. Well, I kind of ripped that shit. I'm sorry, everybody. That was
No.
really fucking negative. But
I think it's fair. I think it's fair criticism. I think it was more entertaining than anything. I just don't think it had much Star Trekkiness to it. You know, it was like just an entertaining sci-fi show. What do you think of? Like, do you think Michelle Yeoh's Captain was supposed to be the main character? Like, do you think that they really drastically changed this thing?
yes.
Or
I don't know if I can't speak to that.
she's credited for 15 episodes and she was not in this episode tonight. So she got credited for an episode she was not in.
She was in it in a flashback, but it was just reused footage. Are they
okay.
going to reuse the footage all the time? And why would you credit somebody for that? That's all. I'm thinking that I know they were always going to focus on the first officer, but through osmosis, you're still going to focus on the captain. But and I understand that sounds so Hollywood, like let's focus on the engineer. You know, it's like shit. They're over. You know, they're sitting in Silver Lake drinking their fucking coffees or whatever. Let's really flip the script on this one, man. Let's make it about the IT guy,
right?
In the Enterprise. You know, fucking.
Then they have to bend over backward to make it work.
Yeah. But. Yes, I think it was majorly disrupted. They reshot the crap out of it. I did hear that, and they, they changed a lot of stuff. So I think they're way beyond what actually Fuller was doing. And so it looks, I'd love to know why he left.
The IMDb ratings are interesting because they line up with what we thought. Episode 2 is a 7.8 out of 10. The tonight's episode, Context is for Kings, is 7.6 out of 10. And then the first episode, The Vulcan Hello, was 7.3 out of 10. So it's right around a C or C plus. Geez, please edit that. It's around a C or a C plus. But, it's in the order that I think you and I kind of enjoyed these episodes on. I think maybe I'm higher on tonight than you are, but it's definitely, it's a wait and see with this. It's like enjoy the ride and hope that it settles into something. I hope that it gets to be a little bit more. I hate that I'm saying this. I hope that it starts following the Star Trek formula a little bit more closely.
See, this is okay. I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, you didn't.
So I'm at Rotten Tomatoes, and this says it all because this has been happening a lot lately. And I mean, this has come up in the last 4 years. The audience score and the critic score used to jive. Like they used to jive pretty well, but lately it is not. And I remember I really noticed it with Alien when all these critics were saying Alien Covenant was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then you saw the audience score like 60%. So we got Star Trek at 86% and the audience score is 58. That's a 30% difference. So that can't be possible.
Well, here's what I think is happening. And you might disagree with me. I think a lot of people will disagree with me. But I think what might be happening here to some degree is that the critics are out there just kind of reviewing it whether or not they're a Star Trek fan. And a lot of Star Trek fans are hearing bad things and writing reviews even if they haven't watched it just because they think it's this pile of shit or it's on CBS All Access, which pisses them off or whatever. So you get people who are like paid to review everything and they're like, okay, it's okay. It's a B plus or a B minus or whatever. Right. And then you have all these fans who are just like, this isn't my Star Trek, or I'm not paying for this on CBS All Access, or, oh, I heard this was shitty, and so you get kind of a groupthink on a score. So I think that, I think it's hard to, I don't trust either. I usually think it's somewhere in the middle. Whenever I see one of those, and I think in this case it probably is. It's probably like a high 60s, mid to low 70s.
That's what I think it is too. And critics are paid. Now, how they're paid, I don't think they're given money, but they're paid. Critics are way too cozy listen, they can't be critical anymore because so many critics do other things like interview movie stars and stuff. Yes. There used to be a great divide with like Rex Reed. Rex Reed wasn't chummy with Harrison Ford, and they were looked down upon and they were looked at as, failed, directors and stuff, which a lot of critics were back then, and they were extra harsh back then. Siskel and Ebert did not like Blade Runner. So I think there's a lot of payola going on, and you just can't believe. That's why you got to go to us, okay? That YouTubers right now who are not getting paid, those are the ones I go to.
We're definitely not getting paid, guys.
Otherwise, it'd be, oh, this is awesome, man. No,
yeah.
Like I've said before, I will sell the fuck out. No, I'm just kidding.
Send me money at.
I get paid. I have a job, so I can come here and be real. So. Yeah, I just think, and the audience scores are based on what people actually put in there. I'm basing it on like I haven't seen most of YouTube after the first couple episodes were kind of in line with us with like, it wasn't great, but let's give it a chance. But this third episode is getting killed. It's getting killed. And I don't, mean to pile on. We're not a troll pile on station. I don't want that kind of negative attention. And maybe that's what the critics don't want either. Like the critics don't want. Because you will bring, if you hate on something, there's a certain audience to be had there. Oh my God, there's a certain audience, but is that the audience you want? Like I said, we're going to be critical sometimes, but not all the time. So I apologize. I don't mean to. I could love the next episode. I am an open-minded person. I will watch. I was going to hate Battlestar Galactica back in the day. I remember when Edward James Olmos said this, if you're going to hate this if you're a Battlestar fan, and I was so mad at him and everything. And then I saw the show and I'm like, oh, it's good. So,
right.
Shit's good sometimes. And this does, there are the effects are good. There's some interesting things they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I
do like different is good. So if they course correct, and maybe the early production was rough, and maybe maybe the later episodes are going to be tighter. You know what I mean? Like once they've figured all the crap out and just got to making a TV show, because it must have been hard to get this thing started. And I don't envy them at all. I mean, other than their paychecks, but the creators, this couldn't have been a 100% fun project for them.
No, I think that especially because they knew it wasn't going to TV, like, oh, what's this web thing? Like, oh, now we're creating Star Trek for a smaller audience than before. Like, interestingly, too, over on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm kind of scrolling through a lot of the it's a lot of 5 stars and a lot of 1 or half stars. And most of the low ratings don't have any review. It's just the stars, and most of the good ratings people took time to write. So it's very interesting looking at it. I would recommend actually going to, because this is a weird
pay for
story.
Those kind of things too.
Yeah, agreed. No, I wish. Yeah. So no, I think it's just.
Did you get that number, by the way?
Yeah, exactly. Email bots at. Yeah. No, I do think this is going to be I really like it or I really hate it kind of a show, even though it probably should be it's pretty good. I don't think it deserves the hate it's getting. I don't think it deserves to be, hailed as a great Star Trek show that's changing the whole dynamic. Like, I think that it's somewhere in between, and it's an interesting show. It's had some highs already. I think this episode was a little all over the place. It was a little bit horror with all the mangled bodies. It was a little bit Doctor Who with the like weird mysteries. It was a little bit like we want to turn Star Trek on its head and be all weird and creepy, but it was still like entertaining. And so I think that as long as it stays entertaining, I'm giving it at least like a 3 out of 5 if I were to be scoring.
Yeah, just don't put weird, awkward people who have never been on an away mission down to a top secret. I mean, just that bugged the shit out. It's like you're putting her down there where a bunch of people just died, how you don't know how they died. And then Jason Isaacs knew that monster was on the ship, so maybe he's trying to get rid of her. Maybe he's not want to get rid of this dope on my ship or something. I have no idea. But that was just silly. That was silly. That was fucking silly.
Yeah.
But
okay, so
there's the mystery real quick. I like that mystery. I like that technology. I think it'd be fun. That's something you can play with.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more about that. If you want to hear more from us, please head over to facebook.com/nerdrotic podcast. Like us there. You can also, if you're not already viewing us on YouTube, please head to the Nerdrotic channel on YouTube and hit subscribe, as well as the little alert button next to it, so you know when you get all of our live comments. Please, or live shows, please comment. We like interacting with all you guys. We try to answer as many as possible. Love it or hate it. If you have any insights, you want to correct us on anything, we take all of that stuff in. So please leave your comments over there on YouTube. That's probably the best place to leave comments. Head over to nerdrotic.com to see all of our content, whether it's video or audio. It's all compiled there. Like I just said, there's some audio only content. Plus, we do all of our videos as audio podcasts at SoundCloud and on iTunes. So subscribe to Nerdrotic on both of those. I am going to be guest hosting this week's Star Trek podcast over on Post Show Recaps, so you can hear me talking to Rob Cesternino about that. We're going to be live after The Gifted on Monday, and I'll also be over on Post Show Recap talking about The Gifted with Josh Wigler from The Hollywood Reporter. So check out all of that content. We've got a lot of new shows in the works. So live after any like geeky TV show, we're probably here on YouTube. So check all of that stuff out. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Jon Reed 16. Gary manages the official Nerdrotic Twitter feed. It's at Nerdrotics with an S. And we're on Instagram, Nerdrotic on Instagram. Shout out to Melissa for managing all of that stuff. So yeah, a lot of stuff in the works, dude. I don't know if you want to run through. We've got our Nerdrotic news, which we've renamed from the official Nerdrotic podcast. Recording, I think, tomorrow with Dennis, correct?
Yeah, we're doing double duty tomorrow. We're doing the news and Gifted, and then Gifted with you.
Excited for
and then, oh, me too. And Mr. Robot on Wednesday.
Mr. Robot on
Robot. And somebody asked if we do Black Mirror. I'll give it a shot. I haven't seen. I saw season 1. I haven't been caught up, but I will definitely check. It's good, so it's a possibility.
So when we're in between TV seasons, maybe in between the fall and the spring, or definitely in between the spring and the summer, we'll do some season reviews of Black Mirror and get caught up and review those.
It's gonna be a little busy now, especially with the Punisher coming and Stranger Things back to back. That's gonna be
Runaways dropping in November, and it's busy now. It's going to get even worse in the spring. In the spring, because they're dropping like Krypton. They're dropping a ton of
Krypton,
the freeform shows. So we've got a lot of stuff in the works, guys. Keep an eye out for all this content.
Can I also mention that we are off YouTube restriction for our live streams in 7 days? Thank God.
It's almost live on YouTube. Oh, this has been
back live streaming. Fucking thank God, because that's what we mainly did. That's why you notice like not the high production value here. It's because we like to live stream our videos because we don't have a ton of time to edit. I edit pretty much everything, and I have a full-time job and a family and blah blah blah. But I love the live stream because it became the identity of our channel. Like we're first reaction, non-edited, non-scripted. Here's my
uncensored.
Uncensored. Here's my notes from them, which are awful. Your camera. I'm like, that was stupid. That was stupid. That was stupid. I like that. That was stupid. That was it. So yeah. So I'm very happy to be back to being live again.
Heck yes. And you know what? I also like taking live questions and comments from the chat when we're on YouTube, and now we can get back to doing that again.
Oh yes.
Shout out to God and Brian Smart, who leave such great comments while we're going, so we can correct ourselves in real time, and we can touch on the stuff you guys actually want to hear about. So yay, back to live on YouTube.
Yeah. Hi Brian, by the way. You're awesome. Like one of our best commenters.
So yeah, the next couple days, 2 shows over on Post Show Recaps and 2 shows here. We've got a lot of content from us, and I can't wait. I hope I really want to bring our friend Harry in to talk about The Gifted at some point. Shout out Harry. He's one of the people that I've always talked to the most about X-Men, and so getting his thoughts on the show I think is going to be key. So I hope we can bring him in for one.
I will contact him. He said he's interested. I just want to know if he's going to be Harry or Precious.
Ooh,
that'd be interesting.
Showing up on the podcast.
Yes, it's kind of a Fight Club thing, except with dresses.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, damn. May the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome. Bye, everybody. Have a good one. See you next week or tomorrow, depending on what you watch. Oh yeah, let's do that.
Live long and prosper. There you go.
Can't do both.
Or.
You have been listening to Nerdrotic Podcast. Please subscribe.